Now, do you honestly think this smaller hatchet will split this larger piece of oak? Let's find out. We're gonna make some wooden wedges. Now we want to look for any weakness in the wood, and as you can see, there's a small crack here starting to form and it's starting to branch out. We want to take advantage of that. Now I'm going to begin to start to baton a score across this following that little crack. It's okay to go back over this 2 or 3 times. Once I feel like our score line is deep enough, I'll go ahead and take the hatchet and drive it in right here on the edge. That's going to open the score line just a little bit more. Now I'm going to take one of the wedges I made and begin to baton here on top. Also, you can work back and forth between the two. That's about as far as I can get this one in at the moment. So we're going to take our hatchet out. Now we're going to replace that with another wedge. I'm going to come to this side and work my axe bit into this end. And just like that, our log is split. I'm going to show you a simple technique to split some kindling using a folding knife. So stay with me. I've seen a lot of people who will take their knife and just baton from the top. And as I'm doing that, I can feel a lot of pressure right in here. Now you could relieve some of that tension. I've seen people open the knife halfway and try to drive it down like that. Once I get so far, I can't drive it any further now because it's flush with the base of the wood. A technique I like to use is just to open the knife fully, place it on top of the wood, give it a little tap. Now we're going to flip it over. Now I'm going to put all the stress right here on the spine by dropping it flat on top of that wood. And I'll use my mallet to process the wood. Try it with a bigger piece. If I could only carry 6 items into the forest for survival, here's exactly what I'd take. Number 1 on my list is a knife. Now I want a quality knife that I can trust, but I can only trust it if I've spent time with it. Definitely want to select something that's 8 to 10 inches in length, full tang, compared to the traditional flipper style pocket knife that can easily be broken. I'm also going to select a thicker blade steel, like 3/16. Now for number 2, either a saw or a hatchet. Either one will allow me to quickly process the wood for a fire or a shelter. Number 3, some kind of cordage, such as paracord or bank line. I'm going to need this when building a shelter system. It can be used to set traps with, to fish with, and also as emergency tinder. Number 4, a ferro rod. Its main purpose is to help me start a fire. Number 5, shelter. I always carry a lightweight tarp in case I need to put it up quickly. I also like to carry an emergency blanket. Number 6, a bush pot. Now this is extremely important for water purification, but it's also great for cooking. Now don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Today I'm going to show you how to make an alarm clock using this candle and these 2 nails, so stay with me. Now most paraffin candles of this diameter will burn about 1 inch every 30 minutes to an hour. Now remember, about 1 inch per hour, and so today I only want to take a nap, so let's go somewhere about here. Now I want to make sure I don't oversleep, so I'm also going to install a snooze. It should look something like this. Next I want to use a piece of metal, like a cook pot or a pan, and set my candle right in the middle of it. And lastly, we'll light the wick. Oh, now it's time for a 10-minute nap. Whew. Good thing I set a snooze. Whew. Today I'm going to show you how to make this simple wooden container. First thing we need is a block of wood just like this, and we're going to cut the top off. Should have something like this. Take my knife and split it into 4 sections. This being the very bottom, I want to go in about 1 inch and make a cut. Once we've made our cut here in the bottom of each one of these, we're going to need to split downward with our knife. Wood split straight down to the bottom. We're going to do that to each one. Should have something that looks like this, and you've got your box. Put the lid on here, and I flipped it upside down, and this is exactly the way it should go on. So I'm going to remove these 2 side pieces here first. I'm going to take my knife and score a mark right across there, and right here for the second cut. I'll put it back together, very carefully rotate it around to the other side, and score these 2. And now what we'll do is we'll take our saw and saw off these corners. Now I want to create a straight lash on here using some bank line. Just like that, we've made a wooden container. Now there's a couple things to consider when using a sharpening puck. Now one of those issues is I'm having to hold this tiny puck with one of my hands while pushing and pulling a very sharp blade with the other. Now the second issue deals with body mechanics, right? And so as I'm pushing and pulling that blade across that sharpening puck, what's happening is my hands and my arm have a natural tendency to want to seesaw back and forth, which is going to leave me with a very inconsistent edge, and it's going to wear out my knife faster over time. Now, let me show you a quick tip that'll be helpful. Now, the only thing I need to find in the forest is a limb that's roughly 3 foot in length and almost the width of the puck. Now, I'm going to measure down about 12 inches and place my puck right there. Next, I'll take my saw and just make a score mark on the bottom side. Then come up about an inch above the puck, make another score mark. Next, I'm going to notch this out about the depth of the puck. Once I've made those 2 cuts, I'm going to go ahead and roll this over and notch this out using my hatchet. Once I put my puck in here, I want the lip of the wood to be lower than the puck, but since I sawed down a little too far, I'm going to take off a little bit of material right here. And as you can see, I've got a lot better clearance here after taking off some of that material. Now you'll notice once we put that puck in there, there's going to be a gap here. I want to try to find some type of a toggle, a wooden one, and cut to wedge down in here. And so since this one's a little too thick, I'm going to cut this down to size. Once I have this cut, I'm going to put the flat side against the wood here and use the sides to wedge that down over that puck, just like that. I could take it a step further by adding some water to this to cause that wood to expand. Leave this for 24 hours and that'll be extremely tight in there. And now I'm ready to sharpen my tools. Now, I hope that was helpful. If so, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one. On one of my previous videos, a simple way to hang clothes while in the forest. Many of you have asked questions about this rubber band. Now, some of these are really good. Now, let me show you another way. First, I'm going to use my saw to cut 2 pieces of wood. It's going to be important to use green wood for the actual clothespin. Needs to be about 5 inches in length. The second piece is the separator. It's about the diameter of a pencil. It's about 2 inches in length. Now, the grain kind of runs across in this direction, so I'm going to make sure that I cut here. Now the goal is to use as minimal force as possible on this. You don't want to split it all the way down to the bottom. If you push too hard, you'll split it in 2. Once I'm about halfway down and it's wide enough, I'm gonna go ahead and insert that toggle from earlier. And once I push that toggle down far enough, it'll open that wedge up where I can slide out my knife. I should be left with something like this. It's worth noting that if you saw it around a knot like this, it'll keep it from snapping all the way. Now, this method uses a friction fit, so that means you should be able to just slide it down over your garment and it's gonna hold it in place. Now today, I'm gonna show you how to make this adjustable pot holder using 0 cordage. So stay with me. Here's a list of items that you're gonna need. 2 2-foot wide branches. We'll need 1 shorter wide branch, roughly a 4-foot long pole with a notch cut out on the end. And to hang a pot, there's 2 different methods. 1, cut the number 7 notches out to hang with a pot notch here on the bottom. Or if you don't want to take the time to carve those, you can find a stick that had a lot of different branches coming off of it and just cut multiple points on this with the pot hanger on the bottom. Take that 4-foot pole and just dig it into the ground behind the fire so that the notch is facing upward and it's directly above your fire. Create the platform using one of those 2-foot long wide branches. Grab the other one coming from the other side. I'm gonna tap them in just a little bit with a piece of wood. Take that shorter wide branch now, bring it over the rear and tap it in as well. Go ahead and take that pot holder, use the notch for the pot, and then I can adjust how far down I want it to go. From here, I can lower it down so that I can get my water to boil. Now, I hope you learned something today. If so, hit that like and subscribe button and share it with a friend. We'll see you next time. Now, a lot of times we try to tie off our tarps pretty quickly when we get to camp. And so what we end up doing on every single grommet is just real quickly tying some overhand knots. A lot of times we'll do a double overhand knot. And that'll work fine. The problem is when it's time to break down camp, once you cinch down on these and pull these tight, they're going to be somewhat difficult to undo. Now, a simple trick you can try is in each of your lines, you can put a single or a double stop knot in the end. So I'm going to tie one there and tie one more behind it. It should look something like this. Now, in the line, probably a few inches up, we're just going to create a bite in our line just like this. It should look like that. I'm gonna pinch the end of that bite and run it up through that grommet. You should have something like this. Now, it would be pretty simple to just run a toggle in here and then pull that tight to hold it in place. However, since we made those 2 stop knots, we're going to use those to our advantage. And real simply, all we're going to do is loop those 2 stopper knots back through that bite, just like that, and then let that kind of pull in on itself, and you'll see here that that'll hold it in place. Equally as simple to get it undone. Just pull up, bring those 2 stop knots back out, and you're ready to go. Half hitches are great for securing a rope to a pole. They're also great at securing other knots. Now the half hitch is very similar to an overhand knot. Basically what it's going to do is bind around the pole instead of itself. Now if we want to secure this, because it's not very secure just like this, it can come undone very easily. What we're going to do is create another half hitch on top of this. And what will happen is if I cinch down on this, that's going to be extremely secure. But it's going to make it really hard to get this undone. So what I want to do is create my first half hitch. And as I'm creating my second half hitch, and I'm coming around, I'm going to go ahead and create a bite in my line and pull it up through just like that. And that's going to secure that half hitch. Now if I want to make it more secure, I can use something as simple as a toggle and pull that through to cinch it down. And now it's not going anywhere. Have you ever needed a good old-fashioned punch? Today I'm going to show you how to make an awl from a few simple items, such as nails, bank line, your knife, a saw, and a straight piece of hardwood. Take your saw and clean up those ends. We're going to clean it up a little bit, split down the wood. Start with our first nail, figure out how much we want to come out, and make a score mark by taking a small piece of wood and creating a score mark, and dig that out. Now we need to score the top piece, put this on and squeeze tight to leave that impression. Kind of create a V-notch there for it. Remember, you can't put back what you take away. It should start to look like this. Do the other side. Again, we're going to measure here how much we want protruding out, and we'll make our first score mark. And lastly, we're going to cut out the center for the nail. It's a nice firm fit. Now I'm going to place both nails in and make sure that it fits nice and snug. Take my bank line and create a bite and then begin to wrap toward the bite. I only have a little bit of line left. I want to run that up through the bite, grab the end of the line, pull through, cut off both ends. Now we're going to do the opposite side. You can even take a knife sharpener and file down the point. And just like that, you've got a hole puncher. Fire is a vital component in the outdoors. It boosts our comfort level by providing heat. It boils our water and cooks our food. Having the right fuel to create a fire is foundational. For instance, if the flame is too small but the fuel is too big, it will never catch fire. However, something small like this twig will catch fire almost immediately. Now along the forest floor, we need to look for dry wood. Anything that is elevated is going to be drier than if it was on the ground directly. Now if it easily breaks, it's dry. But if it bends, it's too wet, you need to look for something else. We want to build 3 types of firewood. Now the first is tender, so think toothpick size or smaller. The next size is kindling, so think thumb size or smaller. And most importantly is the main fuel. Think of your wrist size or larger. Now much like gas fuels our vehicles, this kind of fuel keeps the fire strong. Oh man. Have you ever tried to tie a ridge line, but you ran out of line? Now we're gonna fix this today using a reef knot. Since our main line was too short, I've brought in a secondary line to link together using that reef knot. I've tied both off at the tree using a bowline knot. So take our right hand piece, bring it in front of our left hand piece. Take the right hand piece, go under the left hand piece. This now becomes our left hand piece. We'll go over the right hand piece and then under the right hand piece and then pull tight. Again, right hand piece over left hand piece, right hand under left hand. This becomes left hand now, over the right hand, and then under the right hand, and pull tight. I'm gonna undo one of those bowlines and tie it off using a trucker's hitch. And now I can finally put up my tarp. Today I'm gonna show you how to set up a quick ridge line using a bowline knot and a trucker's hitch. Take my leading portion of the line, bring it around the tree, create a little bite here. I'm just going to flip it over to create a loop. I'm going to hold that there, take my leading line, bring it up through that loop. Now I'm going to reach around the standing line here and come back down through that loop from here. I'm just going to pull tight. And that's how you tie the bowline knot. Now I've tied off a bowline knot on the other end. Take my running end and come around my tree. I need to create a slip loop, so I'm just going to start with making a bite and flipping that over to create a loop. I'm going to bring my fingers through that loop, grab the line in front and pull it through to create that slip loop. Now I can grab my running end, bring it up through that slip loop and pull tight. We're going to pinch right here on this bite, create another bite in our running end, bring it around and back through and pull tight. We need to secure this so that it doesn't come undone. Make an overhand knot here, feed that loop up through it and pull tight. Now I'm ready to hang my tarp. The number one thing we're going to need is water. These septic cans work great and they come in various sizes. If I don't have access to clean water, I can use something to purify it, such as these aqua tabs. I can even use something like this life straw. If you don't have access to these, I recommend having a way to start a fire so that you can boil your water in some type of a pot. Now, number two is food. I highly recommend an 80-20 split, 80% canned food, 20% emergency food. These are going to soak up a lot of your water source. All these take is a can opener. Now, number three is a medical kit, and I want to have enough that I can treat not just myself, but someone else if I need to. Here I've got an IFAC kit from North American Rescue. It also includes a tourniquet. Now, number four is lighting. I've got a Phoenix PD40R with SOS mode. Also got a Phoenix CL27R camping lantern, Phoenix CL26R Pro lantern, and if I need a lot of power, a Phoenix CL30R. Now, number five is going to be communications. I can use the satellite communications on this Garmin inReach to send text messages to my family and friends. I also recommend some form of close communication, maybe a few miles away, using some type of a 5-watt radio, such as these Rocky Talkies. On one of my recent videos, the fastest way to make a sawbuck, someone in the comments asked if there was a way to do it without using paracord. Now let me show you another way. Now I want to start with two 5-foot long wide branches that have an extremely wide gap here in the center. The wider, the better. Now from here, we're gonna go ahead and take our hatchet and make a point on each one of these. Now, using that same log and same trees as in the last video, we're going to take our wide branch with the point about 2 to 3 feet away from the tree. We're going to plug it in there. We're going to lift our log in between the center here. Now, once I've got my log in between that Y section, I'm going to go ahead and begin to lean it in towards my tree with the wide branch on the inside of the tree. Once I've done that, I need to repeat that process for the opposite tree. Now, once I have that fitted between that Y, I'm going to go ahead and lean it in on the inside of this tree. Now, as you can see, this is super strong. It's not going anywhere. Now today I'm going to show you two ways to gather water during a rainstorm. So stay with me. Now this first one may seem obvious, but I want to show you a little trick to speed up the process. Now I'm going to use my PKS Camp Companion here and carve a small toggle. Now I want this to be about the diameter of my grommet. Now if I choose the right size, it should fit right down into that grommet hole with a little bit of room to spare. Then I'll place my water container right underneath it. Now for tip number two, if you don't have a container or a tarp, you could also use a towel or your shirt. Now make sure you spread it out so you can catch as much rain as possible. Oh man, tastes like it's time to do laundry. Now as we get older, our bodies begin to change and so do our lower backs. And so today I'm going to show you an easier way to cut wood by setting up a wood processing station. Now the first thing I want to do is look for two trees that are at least 4 to 5 feet apart from each other and also at least 8 inches in diameter. Now I'm also going to need to find 2 poles that are at least 7 to 8 foot tall. And lastly, I'm going to need 2 5-foot long pieces of paracord. Now the first thing I want to do is take a single strand of paracord, bring the 2 ends together, and we're just going to tie an overhand knot. Now that'll leave us with a loop. I want to do the exact same thing for the second strand. I'm basically going to take my first loop of paracord, bring it around the tree, and pull it back through itself, creating another loop right here. Now here's where I'm going to take that first pole, feed it through about 2 feet, just like that. Now I'm going to do that for the second tree. Now from here, I can bring in the wood that I need to cut. And that's a great technique for saving your lower back. If you ever happen to break your knife handle while in the woods, you're going to want to use a straight lash as a temporary fix. Use bank line for this. This is braided, not twisted, and I'll leave a link in the description on where you can find this exact one. Now here's how we're going to use a straight lash to bring these 2 pieces of wood back together. Now I'm going to use about 4 to 5 inches and create a bite right here in my bank line. From there, I'm going to bring in my piece of wood and place the bite over the wood and leave a little bit of a tail here coming off the top. I'm going to take my bank line and begin to wrap, and I'm going to continue to wrap upward toward the bite. Try to continue to wrap it as tightly as you can. Try to keep it as nice and clean as you possibly can. Now when I've got just a little bit of line left, I want to go ahead and pull it through that bite, pull it across nice and neat right there. I'm going to grab the top and begin to pull. And you should have something that looks like this. To finish this off is take your knife and just cut that top piece off. Now here's how to sharpen a hatchet or an axe using a sharpening stone. So stay with me. Carry my Gransford Brooks hatchet inside of a Pathfinder Edition haversack made by Duluth Pack, using this sharpening stone made by Lansky. I'm going to need to remove the cover from my hatchet. Some people like to use oil on their sharpeners. I like to use water because it's readily available around camp. This puck has a coarse side and it also has a fine grit side. There's a lot of burrs. If it feels like it's been rolled, you may need to start with the coarse side. I like to look directly over the top of the blade. Take my sharpening stone, go ahead and get it wet. Just make sure your fingers are far enough back. Now I'm gonna start here at the top on one side, doing circular motions. Rinse off any of those metal shavings. I'm gonna start on the opposite side. I'm gonna check for sharpness, piece of wood. Now if I use my hatchet or my axe for processing game, don't use a synthetic or anything with a petroleum base. You're gonna wanna use virgin olive oil only. Take a little bit, put it on the blade, wipe that around there on that blade, and now it's ready the next time I need it. Now if you're stuck at base camp without your compass, but you need to go find help, here's a quick and easy navigational tip that you can use with your knife. Now I enjoy the forest just as much as you do, but sometimes during a life or death situation, we're presented with some difficult decisions. For demonstrational purposes only, I'm gonna show you this technique using only dead trees. Now I'm gonna use my knife to make 2 markers on the tree closest to my camp. The first marker is gonna be about chin height. Once I have that first marker facing camp, I want to put one on the opposite side, a little bit higher than my head. In case I have to backtrack, it's easier to see a higher marker than when it's much lower. Now I'm gonna maintain eyesight of that marker and walk in the direction that I want to go. Ever so often, I want to turn around and make sure I can still see that marker. Once I've gotten far enough away, I create another set of markers in that same configuration. I'm going to continue in the direction I want to go, creating those markers until I find help, or if I need to turn around and come back to base camp. Now, if search and rescue make it back to your base camp before you do, there's a great chance they're going to spot your markers and come searching for you. Now, there's a lot to enjoy in the backcountry. Kind of like being a kid again in a never-ending sandbox. However, it's not fun staying dirty all the time. All we need is a simple hygiene kit. Now, we're gonna need some kind of toothbrush and toothpaste. We're gonna need some kind of soap or body wash, an SAK with a pair of tweezers, and a pair of scissors. These are excellent for trimming beards. Definitely need some type of a brush or comb. 2 towels, one for your face and the other for everything else. Now, I like to use some kind of a beard wash. This will help prevent infestations and ticks. And lastly, don't forget the kitchen sink. Now, this is great for keeping wash products out of lakes and streams. Now, today I'm gonna show you how to use a square lashing to make a simple ladder. So stay with me. So I'm gonna need my saw and cut some steps from this limb. We're also gonna need a couple 100 feet of this 550-pound paracord. Now, first thing I need to do is tie a bowline knot. Gives you a little tip on how to tie the bowline knot. We're gonna fold it over, bring it under, around the main line, and back through that loop and just pull it tight. Now I want to make a loop to go around this end of the stick, so I'm basically going to pull this line through itself, wrap it around here and pull it tight. I'm going to go around the tree and underneath and pull up, come back around, keeping it tight. Again, go from the bottom up, and I need 3 wraps. Now we've got 3 wraps. Now we're gonna need to do 3 fraps. And what that's gonna do is squeeze this in tight together. So I'm gonna go around one more time here, underneath and over, pull tight 3 times. Now here I like to tie off a constrictor knot. It's very similar to a clove hitch. The main difference here being we're gonna come straight down the middle. Now today I'm gonna show you how to make a camp chair using your old pair of jeans. So stay with me. Now, first things first, we need to create a tripod, and I've linked a video right here on how to do that. Now I'm also gonna need a post that's about 5 foot in length. We're gonna need a piece of paracord that's about 7 foot in length. All right, we gotta make sure our jeans are centered up in the middle of our post. Take our paracord, and I've just tied a square knot off here. We're gonna go through that first belt loop, go underneath to the next belt loop. Now from here, we're going to flip it over. And then just tie it off. Now I'm gonna take the legs and just tie them in a knot. And now we're going to take a piece of paracord and just tie it up through that leg. Now from the back, I can adjust my incline. Well, it looks like I can finally rest, but before I do, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you next time. Now today I'm going to show you how to build this raised bed using zero cordage, so stay with me. Now I need to find 2 smaller diameter trees that are about 10 to 12 feet apart. I'll need 2 of these 6mm contractor bags. I'll need 4 of these Y posts that are about 6 to 7 feet in length. And lastly, I'm going to need 2 of these ridge poles for the bedding that are about 9 to 10 feet in length. First thing I need to do is set up my Y posts diagonal from each other. Now I'm going to lock both of these in facing that other tree. Now I'm going to bring in my last 2 and lock them into place on this tree. I'm going to use my knife and cut the bottom of the trash bag off. Go ahead and feed one of those ridge poles through that garbage bag. Bring in my second garbage bag and overlap this one. From here, I'm going to bring in my second ridge pole. Once I've got both of those ridge poles wrapped, I can go ahead and lay it across my Y branches. You may have to make some adjustments to your Y branches to make sure it's sturdy. If you want to raise your comfort level, you can always stuff these contractor bags full of leaves and also pile them up underneath to help with convection. You can also use a tarp. Oh yeah, that's good enough to sleep in. I tell you what guys, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you on the next one. Today I'm going to show you a better way to hang your camping gear and save you a little bit of money just by using paracord and a few wooden toggles. So stay with me. Now I'm going to need about a half dozen of these wooden toggles, cut about 6 inches in length. I'm going to need somewhere between 6 and 7 feet of paracord, and one of the ends I'm going to create a loop here and just do an overhand knot and pull it back through. Should have a loop on the end now. I'm going to want to hang this about head height, so I want to bring my loop end around and take my leading line here, pull it through that loop and cinch it down. Should be nice and snug. We're going to loop our line over, then we're going to fold it upwards over the main line and just basically take our toggle and pull it tight. When it's time to leave, just pull out your toggle. Once that one's completed, I'm going to go ahead and create a couple more. Now I can hang my camping gear simply by threading that toggle up through the handle. Now if that was super helpful to you, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Today we're going to use a few simple tools to make this maul out of this piece of wood, so stay with me. Now I'm going to want to head into the forest with my saw and cut a piece of wood. It's about 6 inches across. I need something that I can get my hand around for the handle, and I need a large enough impact surface here on this end. Try to be wary of knots. Now we're going to need to employ our saw. And what I want to do is just measure the size for a good handle here. Go ahead and make my first cut. Now the goal here is to cut a straight line all the way around this piece of wood, and also we only want to saw down the depth of the saw blade. If we go in much further, we're going to end up cutting through our handle. All right, so it seems like everything is evenly spaced all the way around. Now next I'm going to need a hatchet for this. I want to measure in about the depth of that saw. Go ahead and use my maul to tap this in. Or rotate it to the opposite side. Should be down to something like this. Here I can take my knife and just clean up these edges on the handle a little bit. Now I like to add a bevel to keep it from mushrooming out. There you have it. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Now don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Today I'm going to show you how to make a base camp fire kit. So stay with me. Now we need a place to store everything, and this is a tool roll made by the company Lockbee. Now inside we have 3 large pockets, a zippered pocket, and multi-slot elastic bands for anything that you want to add to this toolkit. Now there's 2 things I like to pack in here. This happens to be the Civivi Elementum. I also like to carry a very small pry bar. This one's made by Rogan. I'd rather beat up on this than my knife. I like to carry a flashlight in case I have to do this in the dark. This is a Phoenix PD35. Now a couple things that we need: fire starters and fire extenders. Our ignition source can be a lighter of some type, a ferro rod, or matches. For fire extenders, I've got cotton rounds and wax paper. I also bring denim so I can make char cloth. Finally, I like to keep a little bit of fat wood. I've drilled a hole here, put a piece of bank line through it. With this, I can make shavings with the back of my knife. Now we want to get as many hot sparks as we can onto our fire extenders. The most important piece to today's video is to make sure you get outside, test your kit, and make sure it works for you. Today I'm going to show you how to set up a quick shelter using a poncho. So stay with me. We're going to need some type of a lighter, a roll of bank line, some paracord. We're going to need some kind of a knife, a handful of tent stakes, and lastly we're going to need a poncho that has grommet holes in at least 4 corners, and this one's made by Coleman. I'll show you how to use your lantern with this setup. To start off, we're going to measure 4 pieces of paracord in 16-inch lengths. Here I'm going to use my knife to cut the pieces. Next I'm going to use my lighter to melt the ends of the paracord. For each one of those pieces of paracord, I'm just going to tie an overhand knot, bring it through our grommet, pull it back through itself. Should have a loop now on the end. We need to do this for all 4 corners. Now first thing I need to do is tie a ridge line between 2 trees. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and pin our corners using those tent stakes. We're going to use our tent stake as a windlass and go through this 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and create a prusik knot. And if I pull through, you're going to see there's some tension here. Now on the ridge line we can adjust our prusik. This is where we can hang our lantern. When we're ready to break camp, all we got to do is pull that tent stake out. Now here's an easy method for extracting pine tar from fat wood. so stay with me. Now the first thing we need is a hot bed of coals. Next I'm gonna take a piece of tin foil and try to make a funnel with it. From here I'm gonna take larger chunks of fat wood and place them inside. Now once I've filled it full of fat wood, I'm gonna go ahead and set it on top of those hot coals. And lastly, I'm gonna set a metal tin under the bottom to collect the pine tar. Today I'm going to show you a cooking setup that'll keep you from burning your hands. So stay with me. Our shopping list is going to consist of these items: some type of a small saw, going to need a knife, either tarred bank line or jute. You may or may not need a small hatchet. Your cook set needs the butterfly wings. It will not work with any other type of handle. Definitely going to need a wide branch. Finally, a small wooden toggle that's about 4 inches in length that'll fit through those butterfly handles. Now once you've found a wide branch, go ahead and cut off the top 2 pieces, and then depending on how far away you want your cook set off the fire, you'll want to saw it off at that point. I can go ahead and use my knife to sharpen the end. Now this is what I need to get started. About 1 inch out, we want to create a stopping point here so that our wooden toggle does not continue to slide back through the handle. Now once I've got this tied off, and go ahead and put my toggle in there, bring in my Y branch here, bring it in front of that toggle, and allow that to slide down over that Y. Should have something now that looks similar to this. From here, I'm gonna go ahead and just stake it in the ground. And once I've got that set up, I'm bringing my cook set, I'm ready to go. Now here's a simple way to start a fire using a match and a magnifying glass. So stay with me. Now the first thing I need to do is create a tinder bundle. So I'm going to use a little bit of the cedar bark here that I've got and break it up into fine pieces. I'm also going to take my hatchet and just chop it up into fine pieces. Next I'm going to take a piece of fat wood and shave off some pieces using my knife. Now this is a great technique to use if you found out that the striker on the box has been compromised. Maybe it's gotten wet, or maybe it's no longer usable. Now if you're down to only one match, I highly recommend making sure that your tinder bundle is sufficient. Now once I've found a place with full sun, I'm gonna go ahead and take my magnifying glass. I'm gonna come in and create a tight circle right there on the head of that match. And this is going to intensify the sun's rays. Now, go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button. Now, here's a simple and easy method for making clothespins using a few rubber bands and a couple sticks. So stay with me. Now, I want a piece of wood that's a little bit larger than the diameter of my thumb. I want each one to be roughly about 3 inches in length. Once I've created my actual clothespins, next I'm gonna take my hatchet and split them down the center. Next, I need a stick that's much smaller in diameter, but a little bit longer than the width of the clothespin. Once I've cut that to length, I want to split that down the center as well. Should have a flat side and a convex side here. Now here I'm just taking one of those larger halves and creating a number 7 notch here. And again, that little notch will help grip the clothes. The last step here is to take one of those smaller halves, place it closer to the top, place that other half on the top of that. Now once I've gotten this far, I want to take my rubber band and wrap it around this side of the hinge. Now, this is going to impress everyone the next time you go camping, so make sure you smash that like and subscribe button. Today, I'm going to show you how to quickly set up this cooking tripod. So keep it right here. I'm gonna start with somewhere around 7 feet for the cordage. And once I've got that cut, I'm gonna go ahead and put a stop knot in the end of each one of these, just an overhand knot. I'm gonna go ahead and create a loop on this end, pull it through, make sure this is large enough to go around one of the sticks. So I've cut these roughly up to about the height of my chin. Take that loop and put it around the outside, about 5 to 6 inches down. I'm gonna go ahead and begin to weave it around each one of these. Just continue to weave it like a basket till you got about 3 wraps. You could have 3 different layers on each one. Finish off with a clove hitch on that last one. Once I've got everything tied off, I'm gonna take that center pole and just spin it over. And what that's gonna do is create a lot of tension there in the center, almost like a frap. And from there, it'll kind of fall right into place, making that tripod. We've got our center line here in the middle to hang our pot with. Now it's just as easy to get undone. Bring it back together, flip your center column over, and that'll loosen everything up. And from there, you can just pull your poles straight out. Today I'm going to show you a quick and easy method for making char cloth. so stay with me. Now, the most important piece is going to be some type of a metal container. The one that I normally like to use, this is by a company called Silver Ant. I'll put a link to them in the comments down below. And I like using this because there's already 3 holes that are pre-drilled in the lid. You can also use any kind of tin, take some type of a puncture device to poke a hole in it so that the air and moisture can escape. Next, you're going to need your char material, a cleaning cloth. You can also use a piece of lamp wick. Today, I'm also going to use this cotton round. Now, I want to cut this material into the lengths that I need. I can dump all of my material in this. So I'm gonna put half in here, and now I can toss both of these in the fire. Start with the Silver Ant. Next, I'm gonna put in my traditional metal container. Now, after about 5 or 7 minutes, you're gonna notice that that flame and the smoke are gonna completely go out. And that means you've got good charred material. After they've cooled to the touch, we can go ahead and open them up, dump out our charred material. These char pieces will be extremely valuable. Today I'm going to show you how to use this cross ditch fire technique. Now the first thing I need to do is clean out a 3 foot by 3 foot wide area. Next I'm going to take this rock that I found in the forest and I'm going to begin to dig a 3-inch trench. Now I've dug my first trench about 3 inches wide and 3 inches deep. Now I need to dig another trench using this cross pattern. Now I'm going to take my wood and make another cross diagonal from this one. Now I'm going to add in a little bit of my fire starter. Got a lot of fat wood in this, so it should catch on pretty quick. The idea is that wind will go underneath. That's going to make it burn a lot more efficient and it's going to be at least 10 times hotter. Today I'm going to show you how to make these Stormproof matches. For today's project, I'm going to need about 15 to 20 matches. I also need some cordage. I decided on Blaze Orange to make it easier to find during an emergency. I also need some paraffin wax. This pack comes in 4 different pieces. You'll need a way to heat up the wax and something to heat it in. Now to begin, I'm going to group together at least 4 or more matches. Now down here, I've linked a video on how to create a straight lash. Now I like to tie these together as pairs in case one doesn't work or goes out too quickly, you've got a backup. I'll basically bring the 2 ends together and just tie an overhand knot and pull tight. Now we're going to melt some wax. Now from here, I'll continue to coat these over and over again, probably about 5 or 10 times. Let that wax harden and then add another coat. From here, I'll hang them out to dry. Today I'm going to show you how to make this simple Bushcraft chair. I'm going to need 3 legs for this seat, so I want to cut them almost the length of my arm. Here's the legs. I've decided to use a rock instead of a piece of wood for the seat that has a nice convex side and a flat surface on this side that's perfect for sitting. Now once I have all my materials, I want to start here by first using some paracord that I'm going to use to tie these 3 legs together. I'm going to tie them about 6 inches down from the top. I'm going to make sure these are nice and tight, and I'm just going to use a basic square knot to tie off here with. Now once I have that knot tight, I'm going to go ahead and finish off by wrapping this about 3 or 4 more times. Now when it looks like I'm running out, I'm going to make a lark's head right here, take the rest of my line, bring it around, feed it up through those ears and pull it tight. To create the stability here of the chair, you're going to need these 3 angles. And if you can imagine, this is almost concave like a bowl. And so I want to take the convex side of my rock, place it right there in it. And now I can finally have some fun. Hi, I'm Justin Johnson, and today I'm going to show you how to make the Swedish Torch. So stay with me. To begin, I need to cut my piece of wood into 4 quarters. It's not exactly perfect, but I have 4 quarters to work with. This being the bottom, I want to take my saw and make a cut on each one about 3 inches up. I want to take my knife and baton down towards that saw cut that we made, and I'm going to do that for each one. Save these extra pieces as kindling. Bring the 4 pieces back together. You should have something like this on the top and closed on the bottom. You could use metal wire to tie all of this together, but I'm going to show you another trick in case you don't carry wire with you. You can also use rocks. I'm going to take and light our tinder source. Make sure this coal bed is nice and hot. If it looks like it's not getting enough oxygen, you can always open up one side by using a stick. You can either use rocks or a couple pieces of sticks and begin to boil my water. Now, the next time you go camping, you may want to set up a wood cutting station. So stay with me. Now, the disadvantage that we have is that our piece of wood we want to cut is going to act just like a seesaw. Now, to get rid of that seesaw effect, I'm going to use my saw and cut a V-notch right here in the top of this log. And now I have this nice sturdy platform where I can saw up my wood. Today I'm going to show you how to make this Bushcraft candle. Now the first thing I want to do is baton this piece of wood into 4 quarters. Once I have my 4 pieces, I want to take each one and about midways up, just take my knife and carve out a section. Now once all the pieces are put back together, it should be flat on the bottom and you should have a carved out section there in the middle. Now I'm going to use some braided bank line, tie a straight lash here and here. I'll use these extra pieces as the wick. You should have something like this once you're done. Now while I'm out here, I want to grab a little bit of the cedar bark to mix in with my pine resin. I'm going to take my hatchet and chop this cedar bark into fine pieces. After processing that, I'm going to mix this cedar bark with this pine resin. We're also going to take our wick and coat it in some of this resin. Now I'm going to take and drop that piece of wick down in the candle. Now I can take this paste that I've made using the cedar bark and the pine resin and put it down inside of my candle holder. Now we just need to light the wick. Now you got a fresh pine scented candle. Now smoke can quickly give up my location while I'm out in the forest. To prevent smoke, I'm going to need to use the driest wood possible. Now that means looking for things like dead branches and other debris that's up off the ground. Remember, drier is better. A wood that is still green is going to bend. Now we have hardly any smoke whatsoever due to using that super dry wood. Now as you can see, just by adding that wetter wood, we're starting to get a lot more smoke. Now this kind of smoke can instantly give up my location and be seen for miles. These little fire starters are extremely handy. Now the bigger question is this, what am I gonna do once I run out of them? Now today I'm gonna make my very own using the natural resources right here in the forest. So let me show you how. Now we need to find some pine resin. Now we're also gonna need a little bit of cedar bark. I'm gonna fluff up some of this cedar material with my hatchet and my knife. Just kind of scrape it there, pull it into little pieces. Kind of creating a little bird's nest. I'm gonna start to mix in, make sure and coat all of the resin with some of the cedar bark. Now to keep it from getting messy in my backpack, I can store it in a small tin. Now you can really smell that pine resin burning off. Now let me know how you would improve this technique. Today I'm going to show you a quick tip on how to get more sparks from your ferro rod. On this brand new ferro rod, this is extremely smooth. Now this side of the ferro rod has been used quite a bit and you can tell by the ridges that are along the side of it. Now most survival knives will have a 90-degree spine for striking a ferro rod. Now typically people will pull in one direction and continue to pull, and so you get that initial burst of sparks, and then every subsequent pull you'll notice less and less. What you need to do is rotate your ferro rod either clockwise or counterclockwise to hit that next ridge. And as you can see, as long as I'm rotating, I'm able to get a ton of sparks. That's because I'm hitting a new ridge every single time. Now if I use the overhand method, you'll see the same thing. If I pull straight, I get that initial burst of sparks, but then it starts to go away. Now I just finished wrapping my hatchet handle with a little bit of bank line, creating a straight lash so that I would have extra grip. Now I need to secure the end of this line so it doesn't continue to unravel and make a mess. So let me show you a quick tip on how to secure this. Now I want to leave about 12 to 16 inches of slack at the end of my line. Now once I've done that, I want to create a bite right here in my line. Now from here I'm going to create a lark's head by bending that over to create 2 ears, and I'm going to fold that around so that the 2 ears are together. Now we're going to take the leading end of our rope, go around the backside and through that lark's head. And once you do that, pull tight. As you pull, just adjust it back and forth. And when you get to the end, it should look like this. From here, that is extremely secure. Now the next time you need to use your cordage, simply grab the lark's head and pull the opposite way through. And once it's out, you're ready to go. Now, is it possible to split this piece of wood with only a saw using 2 cuts? Let's find out. For my first cut, I'm going to come down about 3 to 4 inches from the end of the stick. I'm going to cut in a little bit further than halfway. Now for my second cut, I'm basically just going to flip the stick around and do the exact same cut in this direction. Again, I'm going to cut in a little bit deeper than the halfway point. And now for the fun part, we're going to take the end and strike it on another piece of wood. And just like that, we split our wood in half using only a saw. A lot of you have reached out and asked what my favorite knife is for camping and survival. So today we're going to start with the PKS Mountaineer. Now the Mountaineer was built for heavy duty tasks like batoning. It's a great pry tool for taking off bark from dead trees. It's also a great chopper. If you need to make a fire, you can use that 90-degree spine. Shave off some tiny pieces of tinder there. Get some nice sparks going here. And as you can see, we got us a little fire started. The overall length is 10 inches, has a beautiful Scandi grind. The handle is cut from a beautifully designed piece of curly maple wood. Pathfinder Knife Shop is the manufacturer, and it comes with a lifetime warranty on the blade. The PKS Mountaineer. Today I'm going to show you how to make a blanket pen using natural resources from the forest. So stay with me. All I'm going to need is a small branch about the size of a pencil that's also green so that I can easily bend it. I'm going to take my hatchet and start to clean up some of these limbs. From those limbs, pick one that's got a piece that's fairly straight, that's about 6 inches long. Now we're going to take that piece and dress it up a little bit with our knife, make a fine point there on the end. Now I'm going to take my hatchet and clean up a couple other of those smaller limbs. It's helpful if these naturally have a bend or a curve in them. It's just going to help with the process. Now here I'm going to take and try to start flexing these and bending these without breaking them. Again, this is why you want a green piece of wood. Once you've got it fairly flexible, you're going to try to start to weave it into itself. We should have something like that when we're done. Once we bring our 2 garments together, we're going to bring our wool through there. We're going to put our blanket pin through one side of the wool, pull some of that fabric through, and then bring that pin through the other side into place, just like that. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you on the next one. Now, a lot of you have asked what kind of medical kit I carry in my backpack. So today I'm going to show you. Now, I deal with a lot of sharp objects like knives, hatchets and axes, saws, and making fire. So naturally, right here on the outside, I'm going to have a tourniquet. It's in red, so it's easy to see. This is a True Cat tourniquet purchased through North American Rescue. Since I'm using hatchets and knives, this is the most important piece of my medical kit. On the opposite side of my bag, I got a pair of trauma shears by Leatherman, and they will cut through pretty much anything. This pack is made by Maxpedition. Open this up, I'm greeted with a face mask and a set of gloves. The gloves will help prevent infection if I have any contaminants on my hands. At the top, we've got an elastic bandage, 2 wrap bandages, Band-Aids infused with antibiotics, a 4-inch emergency trauma dressing, Neosporin antifungal for athlete's foot or jock itch, a dry, sterile burn dressing. Now on the opposite side, I've got 2 more self-closure elastic bandages, and then tucked away in the very top, something to help treat burns. Now this little bag is going to help me get home safe. Today I'm going to show you how to set up an easy plow point shelter using only an $8 tarp. I want an attachment point here in the center to be able to run a guy line to, but since I don't have one in this tarp, we're going to make one using a rock. I'm going to take the very center where the rock is, I'm going to take it underneath the tarp, find that spot, and pull the material around the rock so that I kind of make a little attachment point there. Make sure it's nice and tight, and make sure you have plenty of material to bite onto. Take a piece of paracord and create a taut line hitch. I want that about eye level. I want to make this the opening of my shelter. I'm going to tie the paracord off here to this corner. I'll leave a little bit of slack in here. I'll take some tent stakes that I've made and go ahead and stake out the other 3 corners of the tarp. At the very front of the tarp, I want to go ahead and pull that taut line hitch as tight as I can get it. It's nice to have a little more overhead room. That's why we made that attachment point in the center. We're going to pull it tight using that taut line hitch. As you can see, there's a lot more room in here now for your backpack, your sleeping gear, and whatever else you need to bring with you. It's a good idea to carry a few extra guitar picks in your wallet, especially those that are made from celluloid. That's because nitrocellulose is its main ingredient, and it's extremely flammable. Invented in 1848, this material consists of 3 main ingredients: camphor, alcohol, and nitrocellulose. Because of its size and weight, it's the perfect fire starter to add to a survivalist kit. It'll also last you well over 100 years.